Welcome back to Spread River Homestead. I'm sure if you've been waiting on the next part of our Raising Rabbit series, you've been wondering what's happened. We've been dealing with snow, wind, rain, all that fun stuff. So in effort to get the rabbit equipment video to you, I am filming from our garage. So excuse the husband's Mustang mess behind me. Okay, so when we start talking about rabbit equipment, surprisingly, even for meat rabbits, there's a lot of equipment that you really probably ought to have. Now, if you've watched the last video, which is about housing, we've touched on a few things. But let's go through this one by one and talk about the things that you need to start your meat rabbit business, I suppose. So the first thing you're going to need, of course, is feeders. Now, rabbit people, it's pretty diverse as far as what you feed out of. Some people prefer crocks, bowls, cups, and things of that nature. If you're using, say, a dog bowl, that's fine. Just keep in mind that rabbits will get in it. They will dig the feed out of it. And baby rabbits will get in there and do their business in it, which means a lot more cleaning. If you want to use a crock type bowl, there's a number of things on the market that you may want to look at. These little beauties here, I use these for my show carriers, and we use them in the winter when our water bottles freeze. They're called an easy crock. You can get these from pretty much any online retailer of rabbit supplies, from Bass, KW, bunnyrabbit.com, Quality Cage, I believe, even sells them. And what these things are, if you can kind of see that, they have these two little nubs that stick out of the back and this beautiful little M-clip. And what you do is you stick it through the cage wire, drop the clip on there, and now your bunny cannot get this thing off. They do make these bigger. These are what I use, like I said, in my show carrier, so they're not terribly huge, but they do get up to, I think it's a 32-ounce crock, so a pretty good sized deal. One thing to be aware of, even though these are extremely hard plastic, rabbits chew, and they will eventually chew holes in them. They're not terribly expensive. I think these little babies are about $3.50. The bigger ones, I want to say, are $4 or $5. But they will wear out because rabbits chew. Far more traditionally, and what you see in most of your farm stores, are going to be the classic J feeder. That's what this baby is. You can see the J-type shape. These can be used inside of a cage if you don't want to cut a hole through the outside, but they're really designed to be mounted kind of like through your cage. So what happens is you cut a hole for the tray, your cage wire is going to sit here, and these beautiful little clips clip down and hold it to the cage. This makes feeding a breeze. You just slip the little lid up. If it has it, not all brands do. Feed from the outside, easy peasy, no fighting food aggressive rabbits or anything like that. So if you're going to use these, they come in a variety of size from 3.5 up to, I think, 13.5 inches. So they make some pretty big ones, which are great if you've got a mom with babies. These things come in a variety of styles. So these that you usually see in the feed store are going to have a wire mesh bottom. Now, about the wire mesh, especially if you've got New Zealand's and other meat type rabbits that will dig or chew, eventually, and I don't know if you can see that big gaping hole, they will tear holes in these things. And at about $7.50 to $9, depending on where you get them at, it can be kind of pricey. The online retailers that make rabbit equipment also offer a couple of different options. You can get these things with a solid bottom. The nice thing about them is no chewing, no digging. They can't tear them up. But if you're using a commercial feed or anything that's got a lot of fines in it, you'll get a lot of dust buildup that at some point you're going to have to pull the feeder out and dump it out. We found that we do ours maybe once a month, so it's not that big of a deal. You can also get them with a metal bottom that's perforated now with little tiny holes, or even a heavy-duty wire mesh that they can't dig through. So there's a couple of options there. You can also get them with a solid bottom that's just got a little strip of the wire at the bottom. I'm using some of those in some of my bigger rabbits, and so far, I'm having good luck with them. I don't know how long-term they'll hold up, because I've not had them that long, but that's another option. So the next thing you're going to need is going to be water. There's a lot of different options here as well. Again, you can go with a bowl or a crock. It makes it a little easier to clean it out. Most rabbit people, especially backyard meat breeders, go with this. The classic 32-ounce bottle with the ball nipple. They're going to come usually with a hanger, so they just hang on the outside of the cage. The bottle goes in. The black part of the nipple is going to rest right here, and the back wire holds it on. Easy peasy. Sometimes these things come up missing, but there are some places online you can go to order them, or if you're frugal like us, I'll just take some extra wire and just make an extra little wire hanger and go on with life. If you've got a lot of rabbits, some people don't like these because for every time you need a water, you've got to unscrew, you've got to fill, you've got to rescrew, and you've got to reattach. So there are flip top waters that they have a pin instead of the ball. They flip up at the top. Otherwise, they mount to the cage very, very similar, except usually it's a plastic clip instead of the metal one. We didn't like these. I had a whole bunch of them. I got rid of them. Some people have really good luck with them. I didn't like them because my baby rabbits couldn't seem to depress the pin hard enough to get water. So what I found is I was using the bottles for the adults, but I still had to go ahead and put crocks and bowls in for the babies. To me, that was a waste of effort. So we got rid of ours. The other thing you can do is an actual water system. You may want to Google this because there's a lot of different options. Everything from an actual hookup to your hose bib to a 5-gallon bucket water gravity fed system. A lot of times they're PVC. They've got a nipple. Bigger breeds especially, the nipple systems can be a little bit of a pain if you're using an automatic water just because they can pull the little things out. And if you're on a house bib or a water bib, you can flood a rabbit barn in a hurry. If you're on a 5-gallon system, it's not that big of a deal. You drain the 5-gallon bucket. It'll make a mess, which is kind of a pain, and have to be usually replumbed. A lot of times they just figure out how to back the nipples out. My word of warning when it comes to automatic water systems is keep in mind that the way they work, water, it's almost a little bit of a backwash, a little bit when they drink. So if you get an outbreak of any kind of contagious rabbit illness, it will spread through your rabbitry like wildfire. So the next thing on my list of things you've got to have for your rabbits, when we talked about these in the housing video, these are resting boards. As I mentioned before, you can use tile, you can use a bunch of different stuff. I like these. They're $3 to $4 depending where you get them. They've got these handy dandy little tabs to where they'll actually snap into your bottom cage wire. These are heavy duty plastic. The rabbits don't chew them up so bad, and they can be very quickly sanitized. So what I do periodically is I pull all mine out, I spray them off, I scrub whatever crap I can get off, I stick them in a big vat of water with vinegar usually. I let everything else get off of them, spray them off, dip them in a bleach water solution, let them dry, rinse them off one more time, let them dry once more, and put them back in. It sounds like a lot, but if you're only doing a few and only doing them quarterly or as they get dirty, it's really not that big of a deal. If you choose to buy these, keep in mind that you want to make sure that they're the heavy ABS plastic, but watch out for the recycled ones. I got a good deal on some recycled ones and they lasted maybe a month and a half. They're really soft plastic and the rabbits just absolutely love to chew them to pieces. There's also some out there from, I want to say the brand is Katie. They're usually white and they're really, really hard plastic, like even harder than this ABS plastic. Try and stay away from these if you live in a cold climate. We had some when we were down in Mississippi, they worked fine. We never got that cold, but when we came here to the Pacific Northwest and they froze, they would actually shatter. Luckily, I didn't have any rabbits get hurt, but I did come out one day to an American doe that was jumping around her cage, and when she hit the board in the right place, it actually shattered the board. So, you'll want the ABS plastic. Stay away from the Katie brand if you can help it. And that's my pick. Anyway, you can get these from pretty much any online rabbit retailer. I've seen them on Amazon, but quite frankly, the price is really high. So they should be about $3 to $4. Some places you'll get a bigger discount on them the more you buy. So if you need a lot of them, it might be a good thing to look for. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need for raising your rabbits, toenail clippers. I like these little ones. They're actually made for cats. I know a lot of people like the bigger dog ones, and if that works good for you, that's fine. Now, my fingers are not that big, so I like these little guys. I do have to watch on my big 12-pound bucks the back toenails because they're very thick. You've really got to line up the round part of the clipper with the round part of the nail. If you try and cut crossways, you can actually crack the nail and cause bleeding. While you're picking up your toenail clippers, find yourself a rug, a mat, or like us, if you've got a dollar store, just a little dollar mat. What this allows you to do is set the rabbit up here, turn them over, and it just gives you a surface where you're not sliding the rabbit around if you're like trying to cut nails on a table or anything. These things are pretty cheap. I try and sanitize mine a couple times a year, just in a bleach water solution. Sanitation when it comes to rabbits is absolutely your best friend. Quickest way to make sure you don't have any diseases is just to sanitize everything. So toenail clippers get sanitized every now and then. I try during the show season because I use them a lot. I try and do them at least once a month. If I'm doing the whole herd, I sanitize about every 10 to 15 rabbits just to make sure that these babies are in good shape. If I do nick a rabbit and it bleeds, I'm going to stop and I'm going to at least wipe these off with a Clorox wipe before I continue. Just good hygiene practice. Okay, so when you're raising meat rabbits, the next big thing I would recommend that you have, and a lot of people will give me backlash for this, is a scale. Now, this is a commercial scale that we use these in rabbits, for show rabbits, for registration, and they are a bit pricey. I think with the basket, you can get them for about 90 bucks. And I know that's a lot, but there is value when you're raising rabbits to have it. What we like to do is I go through and I weigh all of my breeding rabbits at least quarterly. So what happens is I can keep an eye on who's gaining, who's losing, if I'm having any kind of problems. The other reason to have a scale is if you're trying to judge what your cost per pound is when you're raising meat rabbits, which is what we did the first couple years that we raised them. It's impossible to know how much you've spent raising those rabbits when they're feeders if you don't have a way to weigh them. Now, if you don't want to spend $90 on a scale, that's fine. You've got lots of other ways that you can do it. If you're not weighing a rabbit over about 11 pounds, you can pick up one of these babies from Walmart. It's just a little kitchen scale. I found that these things are surprisingly accurate because it is a food scale. My suggestion, because this has an auto zeroing feature, find yourself a little basket, a little box, something to put your rabbit in and zero it out, and then you can weigh your rabbit. Because it's not very big, the little platform end of it is only about 6 by 6 or 8 by 8. It's not very large. You're not going to probably get a big rabbit on this unless you've handled your rabbits a lot and they're willing to sit still, which when it comes to weighing, very seldom happens. But you can definitely use this for your feeder rabbits, or if, like in the last video where we talked about some of your smaller meat rabbits, like your Florida whites and your Triances and some of those things, this would be fine to go ahead and use them. You can also use any small pet scale, so if you've got a dog that you've already got a scale for, it's fine to repurpose it. The other option is a baby scale. Now, I looked online because I don't have one, and I found that they're every bit as expensive as the rabbit scales. But if you have one, or have a friend who has one that's getting rid of one, or can score one at a garage sale, hey, good for you. They're just fine. They're usually pretty accurate. So that's another option, but I would strongly suggest that you have a scale. If you're going to offer rabbits at any point that have a pedigree on them, you're going to have one. Nobody will buy a pedigreed rabbit without a weight on it. If they do, they really don't know what they're doing. But you really want to have a scale to keep track of those weights, to know exactly how effective your feeding program is, and what a good cull rate is, and a good cull size. We talk a lot about 5 pounds, 5 pounds, 5 pounds being the ideal fryer size. If you're trying to do this off of looks, you may not even get close. So a scale is handy. Plop that rabbit on there, know that it's 5 pounds, and go on with it. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need is nest boxes. Now, most of my nest boxes right now are tied up with mamas and babies and all that good business. So I'll show you one of our summer nest boxes. We buy these from Bass Equipment. They're a wire nest box. They actually sell a cardboard liner, which is really handy for sanitizing it. And what these things do, they have a little pull off, and the front folds down. You put the cardboard liner in it, seal it back up, and close it. These things are actually made to where you can mount them underneath your cages as well if you don't want a nest box in, or if you want a permanent nest box. You can actually wire clip these. You just cut a hole in the bottom of your cage and actually wire clip these in. We've chosen not to do that. Of course, we've got stackers, so it wouldn't work for us. But if you are using like a hutch type system, or you know, a row of hanging cages, anything like that, where you feel like that would be a better use of your time, you can go ahead and do that. We are going to go through and do a whole video on nest boxes and building nest boxes coming up in the coming weeks. So we'll talk more about what your options are there. There are a lot of options, so we'll talk some more about that coming up. So the last truly important thing that you need when raising meat rabbits is going to be your dispatch equipment. Now this varies person to person, method to method. We have what's called a rabbit ringer. It's available online. Some of the other brands are Hopper Popper, there's another one that I cannot recall. It's a cervical dislocator. You go through, you slide the rabbit in, you pull back on the hind feet, and it actually breaks the neck and puts the rabbit down. There's also a broomstick method if you prefer, that's very similar. You basically set the rabbit down, put a broomstick across the neck, and pull up on the feet to dispatch. I know some people like the 22 method. To me, it's a waste of perfectly good ammo, but to each their own. Pellet rifles are another option. We're not going to go into depth on that here, and in fact, we're probably not going to talk about it much at all in any of the videos coming up. The reason why we're going to choose not to talk about or show a dispatch is pretty simple, really. There's a lot of really good information already out there. What we will do in some of these upcoming videos is I'm going to go ahead and put a link to my favorite videos so that you can go in and see how the process is done. I really don't believe in reinventing the wheel on some things. I'm not going to put a video out when some people have already got it where it's thoroughly covered. And quite frankly, PETA people scare me a little bit. So we're not going to talk about that, but we will go ahead and put some links up in some upcoming videos. Okay, so that's your equipment that you've absolutely got to have. I'm going to make a couple of just short mentions here about some other stuff that I feel is important, but certainly not necessary. If you're feeding hay, you want to buy one of these babies. It's a hay feeder. What this does is allow you to keep your hay off the cage floor. It clips to the front of the cage. You put your hay in there, and the rabbits can pull the hay out through the wire. It's all about sanitation, so you want to try and keep your feed off the floor whenever possible. I would also recommend that everybody in a bunny kit have some Vettercin or some Blue Coat or both. The time to decide that you need to have something for wound treatment is not once you've got a wound. If you find a rabbit that's been injured, you want to handle it pretty quickly. So having this stuff on hand is a lifesaver. It takes you a minute to go pick it up wherever you've got it at, spray it on, and be done with it. The other thing I'm going to recommend is a carrier. Now this is a pretty large carrier. I use this for my large adult Americans. But I would recommend that you have a carrier. They're a lot easier to deal with than the cat carriers that have the solid bottoms because, quite frankly, rabbits pee. The nice thing about these things, if you've got to pull rabbits out to clean cages, you got a place to put them. If for some reason you've got to take the rabbit to the vet, again, there you go. If you're going to go purchase a rabbit, you've got a place to carry it. And of course, my personal favorite, if you're showing them, you're going to need them anyway. So that's my top picks for what you've got to have to get started in rabbits. Now there's lots of other little fun accessories and things that you can get out there. But these are the must-haves that I think every meat breeder should really consider having. If you've got questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll try and answer them as we go. The next video in this is going to be about how to choose your meat rabbits. Now we've talked about the breeds. But in the next video, we're physically going to look at a couple of meat breed rabbits and show you what to look for. There are things you want to avoid. There are things that you definitely want to check for. So that's all going to be coming up, hopefully, if the weather holds next week. So that's it for Spray River Homestead this week, and we'll see you next time.